Hello, and welcome back to IndieCent. We had a tagline, but I forgot it. I am Elmo, and I'm with Darkside and Danny, and we're gonna talk about video games and stuff, and mainly one video game, and it's called The Magic Circle.
You see, it's symbolic. Fantastic. I came up with a terrible tagline for this episode too, but oh well.
More like the magic suckle.
As usual, I'll be leading the discussion just so we can keep this in order. And yes, as Elma said, we will be looking at The Magic Circle, a game made by former System Shock, Bioshock, and Dishonored devs. But before we get to that, we need to ask everyone what they've been playing, so let's start with Danny. What have you been playing lately?
Not much. I've just been chipping away at Yakuza 5 a little more. Not much to add about that. I punched out a bear at one point. It was awesome. I picked up Dead Cells in the recent Steam sale, and that's a good game. It's a very good game.
Justified, what is that game? I've heard of it, but it's not ringing a bell.
It's a Steam Early Access game, though it's like incredibly polished for one, and it feels pretty finished on its own already. They're just having an early access because they wanted like double the content, and so they're just gradually updating.
Oh, what's the premise?
The premise is you're a slop of goo that just spawns in to this like weird island castle that's always changing, and you inhabit a dead body, and you kill things and collect cells to upgrade, and then you die, and then you do it again because it's a roguelike. With some Metroidvania.
Roguelikes.
Yeah, that was my response too, because it's been billed as like a Souls-like Metroidvania roguelike, which those are three buzzwords that just make me roll my eyes. But it's good.
Does it have crafting and survival meters?
No, thankfully. I mean, you have your health meter, but it's like it's actually a really good game. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of hard to really describe why, just because it's got a good feel to it, and like I didn't get put on board until I saw someone actually play it, and then I was like, oh, this is actually cool, because I had been just rolling my eyes at Souls-like combat, Roguevania as they call it, but it's just good. It's just a fun game, and it looks neat. And I can't wait to see what more they add to it, because it's a lot of fun.
Anything else?
Picked up a couple retro games, because GameStop had a buy two get one free sale recently. I picked up Sonic Battle on the GBA, Pokemon Leaf Green, and Sonic Heroes for GameCube. So I played a little of those.
The good version. That's the good version, Elmo.
Ugh, what are the bad versions like?
They're broken. Like, they have glitches.
So how are they different to the GameCube version?
Look.
Because they're so broken you can't really finish it properly.
So how are they different to the GameCube version?
Hey, Sonic Heroes is good.
Okay, I'll admit, the special stages are terrible.
It's a good game. It's fun.
And what have you been playing, Elmo?
I gotta be quick because there is one other thing that I really want to talk about. I've mainly been playing Cooking Mama 3, which is stupid and fun, and I love it. And Lara Croft Go, which is one of those weird games that I would describe as flawless, but not perfect, in that I legitimately have played it all the way through. It's about 10 hours long, the puzzles are great, the graphics are great, everything in it is great, there's nothing in it that I would change. But, you know, it's a port of a iPhone puzzle game. And it's legitimately really, really great. But, you know, iPhone. I haven't been playing too much this week because my friend got some free cinema tickets, so I can highly recommend the new Spider-Man Homecoming movie and Baby Driver. They're both incredibly good, and you should definitely see them. I know this is kind of out of place, but I really, really want to complain about something horrible that happened at work. Because my workmates will not, they wouldn't understand it, and my family would not understand it, but you guys would. And if we have any listeners, they would too.
Go for it.
Okay. We have some crappy upcoming event at work named Communications Day 2017. That's how good it is. And I work up on the second floor of an office building. And I just went to work on Monday, go in at the ground floor, and I just see something out of the corner of my eye. And I don't even really see what it is, but it makes me feel very, very angry. So I get a better look at it. It's that picture from Game of Thrones with Ned Stark holding his sword, and it says, "Brace yourselves, Communications Day 2017 is coming." and so I'm just like, ugh. So I climb up to the first floor, and there's another poster, and it's that picture of Willy Wonka looking a bit condescending or sarcastic or something, or a bit creepy really. And it just says, "Wow, Communications Day 2017? Tell me more."
Do you work for all of the RAs I had in college?
Possibly.
I have seen this exact same thing at my local campus. You can't escape it. Normal people should not be allowed to meme.
Nobody should be allowed to meme, but especially grown-ups.
No, we make exceptions for Lost JPEG.
They're not even jokes.
That would be great. Runs into a hospital. He's like, I'm terribly sorry, but you've missed Communications Day 2017. No. But the worst one was, I got up to my floor, and I just look at the wall, and I just honestly want to turn around and just go home and just call up my boss and say, I cannot work under these conditions. It's a picture of Bad Luck Brian, and can you guess what the text on it was?
No.
It just said, "I'm going to Communications Day 2017. There wasn't even anything about bad. Not that would make it better, because memes are horrible, but So anyway, the Magic Circle. So Dark, what have you been playing?
Doesn't that mean going to Communications Day is bad? If Bad Luck Brian is going?
I was also questioning the sincerity of whether Willy Wonka really wanted to be told more, because he seemed, to me personally, to be taking the piss.
Yeah, that whole thing is sarcastic.
This has been fantastic. I guess I'll go ahead and move on to what I've been playing. I've mainly just been doing catch-up for Hardcore Gaming 101. I finally finished all the games they wanted me to do for the NES book. There was a Power Rangers game, which was surprisingly good and had an easy mode, thank God. There was a game based off a manga from the guy who made Astro Boy. It was called The Three-Eyed One, and it was actually really fun, but it pissed me off so many times. I'm trying to remember what the rest were because I've already talked about Shatterhand and how it's like perfect. But other than that, I've just been other than the Magic Circle. I guess I played the new Will O'Neill game, Little Red Lie. And if you don't know who Will O'Neill is, he's the actual Sunlight guy. So you can imagine what type of game Little Red Lie is. If you have not played actual Sunlight, that is a game where that was an autobiographical game where he described the time he almost committed suicide. So fun times ahead in Little Red Lie. This time around, it's a fiction game with two stories being told side by side, and they only really interconnect at one point, and it's so minor and pointless that it doesn't really change anything. So I was confused why that was happening until I reached the end, and I was like, oh. And it's like the fact they don't intertwine is kind of the point, but basically it's a game about this 39-year-old woman who ended up losing everything she managed to earn in her life and is living with her parents right now, who are going through massive financial difficulties. And the other story is about a man named Arthur Fox, who is a complete asshole dipshit, who gets paid money to tell poor people they suck, and they give him money to do it, and he keeps doing increasingly terrible things. There's a point in the game, so far for like the first half of his story, it's being told, everything in the game is told through inner narration, so you get an impression of him as like some sort of complex individual who has reasons for doing the things he does. But then at like the halfway point, Will O'Neill enters the game itself as like a minor character and just starts talking to him. He's like, no, he's actually a complete asshole. Yes, he has his reasons, but he's a monster. And then all of his stories from there get increasingly horrific. And I'm honestly really mad he doesn't die at the end, which is like the point, and that's the only thing in the game I'll spoil. I highly recommend it, but I gotta put trigger warnings all over that fucking thing. It is not an easy sit.
Little Red Lie.
Yeah, it just came out recently and he gave me a review copy. I'm gonna write an article about it for Hardcore Gaming 101 since I already did actual sunlight on the site. And apparently I can just convince Kurt to let me write about games nobody in his normal user base ever wants to hear about. I got him to let me write about that upcoming Homestuck game for reference.
Oh no.
So yeah, Little Red Lie is a really rough sit, but it's really good. And I also like at the final scene after the credits is just Will O'Neill again, just there to piss on anyone who cares about game achievements. And he's like, there's actually one part where he brings up people. It's like, oh, you're gonna go make fun of people who buy body pillows and have sex with them again? Well, at least they're having sex with pillows. What are you doing?
I mean,
It's
same.
beautiful.
That's a hero right there.
I really cannot wait for the next Always Sometimes Monsters because he's writing for it. It's gonna be so good and so soul crushing. Anyways, that's what I've been playing. Should we get to the main discussion?
Let's.
Danny, did you have something to say?
Fucking.
I think Danny loved this game as much as I did. She's just having trouble putting it into words.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get to the main discussion of the Magic Circle. Alright, I went ahead and took notes on like Elmo, so I'll just explain what this game is.
I took some notes. I wrote down his name.
Whose name?
Ishmael Gilder. 20 years ago, Ishmael Gilder wrote a text adventure I am not reading off a screen, named The Magic Circle. And then I just wrote Development Hell, Duke Nukem style, many cast changes, delayed, kind of the Last Guardian-esque. Just
Did you?
Yeah.
I'm disappointed. Did you even write down that he's a parody of Richard Garrett, the creator of Ultima, and they actually reference the time where his character Lord British was assassinated in Ultima Online?
Wait 1 second.
See, I do research.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. This is why I do this podcast.
This is gonna be a great episode.
Anyways, the Magic Circle, as I mentioned before, is a game by former Shock Series and Dishonored devs under their studio name Question. I don't think they've released anything else other than this game so far, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to do more at some point. And you can definitely tell that this game was made by former Shock and Dishonored devs because the open world, oh boy. But yes, the premise of the game is that a man named Ishmael Gilder, the Lord British parody, who is voiced by the voice of Dr. Venture, James Ubernack, just doing his Dr. Venture voice again, is a man obsessed with telling a very personal story, and he's been spending years and years making a game called The Magic Circle in order to tell that story. But things in his life have not gone well, and his story and the game itself have gone off the rails with it, not helped by him constantly butting heads with one Maze Evelyn, voiced by Karen Dyer, a pro gamer who was hired on to help with the mechanics side of things, except she absolutely despises narrative in games, and the two just cannot find middle ground. You start the game doing a test run for the current build, which is barely anything at all. They end up bickering about how much power the player should have in the game, where like Ishmael calls the player Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Genocide.
Oh yeah, that's right. They want all these well-written characters, but they also want the right to kill them at any time they want. It's like, too real. And you end up beating, I say in quotations, the game, and it was a massive disappointment. You get kicked back to the title screen as a cutscene plays showing they're hiding a new intern named Coda Solis, voiced by Ashley Birch. You might remember as the girl who loves meat from Attack on Titan and Troll from Life is Strange.
That's Darkseid's favourite game, by the way. He especially loves the writing.
And when you head back to the title screen, the actual game starts when being known as Pro, voiced by Stephen Russell, who is most famous as the main character Gareth from Thief, starts talking to you and says, "This game is indeed a joke. Why don't you finish it?" And then suddenly you can start walking on the title screen. The logo itself breaks apart. You enter the void, and then begins the actual game where you're trying to completely destroy the current version of the Magic Circle so you can start from scratch.
Woo!
It's very, very meta. Very meta.
I want to point out that this is kind of an unofficial sequel to the Beginner's Guide, what with Coda being here, and it's nice to see that she gets an expanded role in this one.
That was my first thought too.
Oh,
as soon as I heard Coda, I was like, "Is this a Beginner's
Let
Guide
me make
reference?"
one thing clear. This Coda is much closer to Davy in the Beginner's Guide than the Coda of that game. Basically, there's a rapporteur going on. I just butchered that word, whatever it was. There's a balance between these three characters, and they all represent a different viewpoint. Ish is someone who believes in the power of narrative in games, but he's so self-obsessed with his own story that he's unwilling to compromise. Maze is someone who believes strongly in mechanics and even tells you a very obviously passive-aggressive story about how story ruins games. And she wants to make a game where you can really dance with the mechanics, but she can't with Ish, so focused on narrative. And Coda is a giant fangirl who is basically toxic fandom personified and is trying to make a giant coup in order to take over the development of the game, and she eventually does, and it all goes right to hell the minute she does it. Just like real Tumblr, everything she loves, she destroys.
Literally murders the FPS.
And then, of course, there's Pro, who is a character within the game and also a voice for the actual developers of this game, who is trying to encourage the player to think like a developer and to be something better than these three idiots. It's an interesting mixture I found, and I really like that if you bother getting like the voice recordings in the game, there's a surprising amount of death in Ish's character, though I'll save that for the spoiler section.
Yeah. Oh, the characters were definitely the main attraction of the game to me, and I like how all four of them are kind of a little bit understandable, but also a little bit, I don't want to say douchey, but because they're not at all, but they're all a little bit, you might be in the wrong here, because Ishmael is like...
We can agree Coda's douchey.
Yeah, but she's voiced by Ashley Birch, so she's right. It's just... But yeah, like, Ishmael is definitely a kind of... Oh, I don't know if this counts as like a shout-out or throw-down. I'm so bad on lingo. Definitely a kind of Phil Fish or maybe Jonathan Blow, just kind of single-mindedly working on one game, but always thinking like, no, I haven't done it right, I'm starting the whole thing over again. Except, as Dark mentioned, there's some out of universe issues there. And I like how Maze is actively trying to get fired and just doesn't even care. The only thing you need to know about Maze Evelyn is that in one of the audio logs, it's between her and Coda finds out that she keeps recordings of the men that she's beaten in online games, and them just screaming at her when they find out that they got beat by a girl. And she calls it the chorus of the damned, and she is right.
Let's just go ahead and get the elephant out of the room. You did not like this game, did you, Danny?
I like bits and pieces of it, but I got very, very curt with this game. Let's say that. I swore a lot at it, and in our group chat for the podcast about it.
I've never seen you so frustrated at a game before.
I've been that frustrated at games before, but yeah, it's a special just yelling at my computer because I hate it.
For me, the game that did that to me was the Hulk Ultimate Destruction on the PS2. Because there's a part in it that's completely broken where a bunch of Hulkbusters are attacking you behind a barrier, and you have to throw something from inside the barrier outside the barrier to hit a satellite dish to destroy the barrier, but the Hulkbusters keep attacking you, and if you do a special move that lets you do a lot of damage, they still get to attack you while you're performing the move, so you're constantly getting pounded and destroyed whenever you do anything. And the only time I got close to beating that part is because the game glitched out and I didn't end up in the shield when it spawned, and I screwed up anyways, and I almost destroyed a controller, and that was easy mode.
I smashed up a GameCube controller playing the first Spider-Man movie game. Oh.
I have that game.
That's one of the few games where I look it up and I see, oh, this got overall positive reception. And instead of just being like, oh, well, hey, that's just your opinion, I'm just like, these people are wrong. There is something defective about them. What about this was good?
Which boss fight was it?
It was the level where you have to go around defusing all of the bombs, except there's an incredibly strict time limit, and everything's shooting at you. So you can't.
I remember
you
that.
can't take the time out to kill the people shooting at you because there's a strict time limit. But you have to but you can't leave them alone because they'll kill you before you can defuse the bombs. And the bombs are all in these mysterious, hard-to-reach places. And the first time I beat the level, it glitched out and didn't save anyway, so I have to do it again.
Oh, it's the best.
Just
Get good.
Great.
in general, that's a terrible, terrible, terrible game.
But Ash narrates it, and he's mad at you the entire time. Evil Dead guy. I forgot. Bruce Campbell. That's his name. Bruce Campbell is passive aggressive to you throughout that game. How can you hate it?
Do you understand?
Didn't you like it in the tutorial when you did a thing and he was like, "Oh, good job," just like Christian Bale on the set of Terminator Salvation? Just saying, "Oh, good for you," but in Bruce Campbell voice. That game's great.
I actually forgot he narrated in that game. What if Bruce Campbell was narrating this game?
No, but the old pro, like the whole time, to me just sounded like Birdman voice. Like the voice, I can't remember his name. The main character of Birdman, like that inner voice he has in his head. That's what the old pro sounded to me the entire time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It does kind of sound like that.
I just had that in my head like the whole game. And I kept saying, "Is that the same guy?" And I was like, "No, wait. That's like a famous actor."
Like Harvey Birdman?
No. Different, that's not the Adult Swim voice actor we had in this game. But yeah, I guess getting us back on track from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
the great Spider-Man for GameCube game. I think
I'm trying to remember if there was a Spider-Man parody in the Venture Brothers, because there was a Fantastic Four parody with the abusive dad. I remember that. The guy was a dickhole.
What?
Yeah, there was a Fantastic Four parody in the Venture Brothers where where only the Mr. Fantastic XP got good powers and everyone else got bad powers. Like the Human Torch one, his body was constantly in pain and burning whenever he's exposed to oxygen. The Thing was mentally impaired. The Invisible Woman, you could see like her veins and stuff. So yeah, he treated them all like monsters, and he was a big old dickhole, and actually became a super villain for a while.
I need to catch up on Venture Bros.
He was a jerk.
Anyways, this game's open world sucks.
So we can all agree that we loved the Magic Circle.
I'm hesitant to say love, but I liked it.
It's too open-ended, and that's where like most of my frustration came from with this game. I didn't know what to do. Like, you get the one objective that's like, kill the Sky Bastard. And it's like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. I had to ask so many questions, and I don't know if it's just me and the way I think or approach games, but this game was just so unintuitive for me. I don't know, did either of you have like that kind of problem figuring out like the puzzles and everything?
Yeah, I get that. I'm normally a bigger fan of linear games because I know what to do and don't get stuck on stupid crap. But since I've been playing RPGs lately, like Dragon Age Origins, Mass Effect, and the Shadowrun games, I've gotten more used to having a bit of freedom and I've kind of noticed patterns in how they design games like that. Like, they're not always as empty as they seem. There's usually something around that you can do something with. And plus, Pro throughout the entire game is edging you on to, like, do something unexpected or think about how the world works. So I figured whenever I saw something new like the Hivers, I was wondering, oh, I wonder what this does. And so I kept exploring that way and eventually started finding all sorts of weird stuff like that mind swapping enemy where you open the cage and it like kills a corpse thing in the same room. And that was just wild. I actually lost the power from the Mushroom Wizard because I forgot to loot a body that got mind swapped and forgot I could trap enemies. So I ended up getting mind swapped and killed.
We should probably talk a bit about the gameplay, because a lot of people are like, mind swap? What? Trapping? Eh? I went a bit Joey Wheeler at the end there, but never mind.
You go ahead and do it since this was your pick.
Well, oh god, what do I say? It's difficult to talk about the gameplay of the Magic Circle, because once you really get into it, it is a half-finished video game that's, you know, built that way on purpose. And so you end up getting sort of the power of life within the game, so you can rebuild things that have been cut, and you can also use this energy to trap the other creatures in the game. And I think everyone has their own kind of, oh, I'm so original moment when they trap the first creature, and I forget what they're called. Let's just call them weird dogs. Howlers, that's it. You trap a howler, and you, while it's trapped in this weird like kind of circle that you can create, then while it's trapped you can edit it, and you can edit it to be friendly to you and be an enemy to other howlers instead. And I think everyone did that and thought, wow, this is great and hilarious, and it kind of is.
I named my first howler Doggy.
All I remember about them is that Jim Sterling named his like Chungus.
Of course.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So that's basically it, because you can take the abilities from other creatures that you have, and it's kind of a weird mix and match. And we're going to be talking a lot about the open-endedness, but yeah, that's...
You want You want rocks with sniper bullets? You can make rocks with sniper bullets. Yeah. You want flying turtles? Oh yeah, that's one of the basic ones. Yeah. You want to make a giant pack of fire dogs with tractor beams? You can do that.
Do you want to give a baby a machine gun? Good news, you live in Texas. That one.
You can give a baby sniper shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, you basically just get limited dev mode, and you collect powers from other enemies, and you can't modify yourself, but you can modify everything else around you. And you use that to solve puzzles.
You're basically a powerless god because Ish decided to take out combat when you were doing the first run.
Mm-hmm. But you can make other things fight on your behalf. That's the...
Yeah, like, there's a creature called the Hiver Queen who has a power of hive mind that can give all creatures of the same type the same attribute. But in order to beat it, since it's incredibly overpowered, you have to give enemies powers far different from what they usually have. Or you can just throw a mind-swapped victim at it, and bam, you win.
I never even got mind-swap.
That was like my solution in most every problem in the game.
And that's kind of like my main problem with the game, like the actual gameplay. Because it's not a bad idea, but it feels kind of unintuitive for me, and just more than anything tedious. Because it takes a while. Like, it's a short game, but just the process of going around collecting everything, going back and forth, even with fast travel, is just tedious.
Yeah, I do get that. It takes a while to get the really fun powers like Mind Swap, Parasite, those sniper shots, Repulsor. Flight. Once you get Flight and have a turtle, congratulations, you've beaten the game.
Mm-hmm. Honestly.
A lot of the fun is messing around with the things you find, but like the really fun stuff is hidden away much deeper than the basic stuff you're not really going to do much with. So it's kind of frustrating in that department.
Yeah, I just equipped my turtles with Flight and tractor beams, and then I won the game.
I never used the tractor beam much other than to get over one ledge. I was more fond of just taking some hivers, giving them hive mind, then giving them sniper shots, then giving them Flight, and then making them hate the sky birds and the sky bastard, and then I won the game.
Mine just sniped the sky bastard.
Yeah, it wasn't even
so
a fight.
away.
There was so many of them that they just went crazy and no one could get off a shot.
Mm-hmm. And then you sit and watch a long cutscene, and then you make a game.
Oh, we just entered spoilers.
Is that even a spoiler?
I kind of veer back and forth on the open-endedness, because even though I did really like the game, I think I agree with everything that Danny said. It's one minor nitpick, the walking speed, it's really slow. That, like, if they just gave you like a run button, like, oh.
I don't know. I didn't mind it that much because, like halfway through, I remembered, oh yeah, I can press the map button and fast travel.
Yeah, but then once you fast traveled, you have to slowly walk to the specific place you're going. Like me slowly walking into my office after seeing a horrible fucking meme poster.
To be fair, I'm the guy who likes the Mako and Mass Effect, so I don't mind slowly moving through pretty landscapes, especially when half of them are System Shock style spaceship areas done in the exact same graphical resolution as the original System Shock. That's one of my favorite moments of the game, is when you discover the spaceship area and then unghost all of it, and suddenly the fantasy world is populated with all these low bit sprite spaceship areas, and it's like the coolest thing.
I think there were too many spaceship areas.
I want more.
Mainly just because there were only two kind of areas in the game. There's the more modern version with the Hiver Queen that was being reimagined and designed at the time, and then the space world. And when you get out of the cave, when you get out of your first trip into Spaceland, and when it finally becomes an open-ended game, there's about 5 different parts, and I think like 3 of them are you go back into Space World. And all of the corridors look kind of the same.
Fair enough.
Honestly, the worst offense to me was once you get into the editor mode. Because...
you like the editor mode?
No, it's the worst thing to me. Because once you get in...
Fair enough.
I love that I just heard Dark go, "Oh, did you like the editor mode?" And then just later, it was the worst thing.
If I could have just toggled through it, it would have made the game, like... I don't know have a percentage, but just more enjoyable if I could have just toggled through it instead of having to use the dumb, super precise pointer. Because it was just annoying. Like, oh, my stick accidentally, like, off by a pixel. There's so much you have to get the right pixel. It's tedious.
Yeah, you have to angle it just right with like the mouse or something, and it's so precise and awkward because it's all on one plane. Oh, you were using a controller?
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine how painful that must be with a gamepad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the editor mode, after you've killed Coda, the Sky Bastard, so to say, as Pro calls her, you can enter her and we'll get to the story stuff in a moment because that's what I want to talk about most. But basically, you enter an editor mode and you have to make a working version of the magic circle so that can at least be sold as a first episode. So you get to make an incredibly basic dungeon crawler, like add little story bits, music cues, monsters, and all that. But there's not much depth to it, and it's really not that interesting, except when you pro or Coda later after you beat the game, you can watch her play it. One of them will play it, and you can watch how they play what you've designed. And the game is basically teaching you how to think like a designer, not to think how would I play this game, but how to think how would someone else play this game. Because they always play it in ways you were not expecting.
That's how they played it for me. They never picked up the damn health packs.
I had to put a lot around and make them obvious to see, because if I like put one in a back corridor, they would never reach it unless there was some loot nearby.
I just randomly spawned things everywhere until I ran out of life.
The only weird buggy part I noticed was that sometimes an enemy would be like several feet in front of Pro, and he ignored it because he saw something else closer that he was interested in, and then it started whomping on him.
I would like to know what scores you guys got, because at the end,
10.
the old pro will rate the game that you made.
7 out
I
of 10.
originally got 8 and then got all the way to 10 because I wanted to be perfectionist.
Hey.
I shipped a 7 out of 10.
And of course, in order to do that, well, here's another big problem with this game. If you've noticed, I said you can tell this was made by Shock game devs and like Dishonored devs, because there's stuff in the world to collect that's mostly pointless.
Yep.
And it's spread out everywhere, and including most of the most interesting story bits are hidden away in these collectibles. So if you want to really get the most out of the game, you actually have to go find this supposedly optional stuff. And then when you get to the editor, you come to the realization that you only get so much life, as in so much you can do to the game world based on how many collectible things you found.
They shouldn't have called it life at that point. It should have just been like memory.
Yeah, pretty
that would
much.
make actual
The only
sense.
reason I was prepared for it was because I've heard about this game before, and like a video done by Errant Signal, and it's a really good video. I suggest you check it out. But yeah, that gave me a heads up that I should probably actually look for these optional things, or else I'm going to be screwed. It's kind of a dick move not to tell players about that.
It kind of ties into the open-endedness bit, because for the first, I'd say 2 hours that I spent wandering around through all of the corridors, going down all the different routes, I had quite a lot of fun, and I found a lot of stuff, and I was very amused by the new abilities I could find. And then the last hour, when I was looking for a corpse that I had forgotten to edit, because you have to edit every single creature that's available to be edited to get like the 100% completionist achievement. Then I was really tired and hated it.
Yeah, that's why you should not put stock in achievements, especially with developers like this.
Yeah. Hey, I didn't give up on the Stanley Parable, and I'm not giving up now.
You know, I actually didn't mind all the samey corridors in the space game, because I get what they were doing. They were like having some fun with old game conventions, like how the original System Shock, a lot of people forget, was almost sort of like a Metroid game, except super clunky. And plus, that was the section of the game that had the most influence from Maze, who's interested in mechanics, so she didn't bother with like any open spaces or anything. She just made these corridors for the sake of enemy placement.
I would have liked it a lot more if I didn't just get lost, because I was thinking, great, I need to go to the tractor beam hangar. and then I would just spend half an hour very slowly walking through a corridor thinking, I sure hope this is the way to the tractor beam hangar, because I have no idea.
It felt like at least 50% of the space corridor areas just were pointless. Like, just filled with empty rooms and hallways that lead to nothing. And it...
Just like the original System Shock.
Yeah, I guess. I've only played some of 2.
I'm joking. The original System Shock had all sorts of items you had to find, and you had a gigantic inventory, but obviously that game doesn't have that, so it doesn't happen here.
Yeah, this game shouldn't have had an inventory. I would have vastly
It does
preferred...
have an inventory, but it's just for like creature behaviors and stuff.
I would have vastly preferred just a straight walking simulator.
Yeah, one thing you can say about this game is that it's a good example of a problem in a lot of Western development these days, of the open world has to be big, so big that don't worry about what to actually put in it, just make it big. And the end result is a slog.
The game suffers from the very thing they argue about. It needs gameplay. No, there's too much gameplay. No, it needs gameplay. Like, those arguments happen in the story. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there frothing at the mouth. Why did you put this gameplay in?
Yeah, there's a lot of weird decisions with this game that I didn't gel with, especially hiding all those audio logs in so many obscure places, because those are the most interesting parts of the game by far.
I played the game through twice because, again, I'm sorry, there's 2 achievements that are kind of locked out unless... There's 4 achievements and you can get 2 of them on one playthrough and you have to get 2 of them on another. They're exclusive. And playing through the second time, I knew in advance, okay, I'm in the open-ended bit. I'm gonna get fireproof, I'm gonna get a flamer, I'm gonna kill the sentinel, I'm gonna get past the sentinel, get a whirlybird, and then I've basically won. And it still took about 20 minutes just to slowly walk, and just to do it step by step, and that's just... It's very annoying when you know what you want to do, but you know that it's going to be 5 minutes walking here to try it, and you've got to hope that you get everything just right when you try it, and then you've got to hope that you're correct to begin with, because you might be wrong and just be like, oh well, I've just wasted 20 minutes. Could have been worse. Could have been playing the Spider-Man movie game, but still.
I didn't mind it so much because I'm a big fan of just taking in environments, and this game has such a really cool aesthetic to it. Like the black and whites, almost sketch-like fantasy world, and the very old school sci-fi world, and how they intertwine so effortlessly. And it's just, I've never seen a game with a style like this before, not even MadWorld. And it's just, like, I was really interested to see more of it every time I booted up the game. So, like, yeah, I like pretty things, so I did not mind the open world and the corridors as much as everyone else, because it was pretty.
Space wasn't pretty.
Space World was very pretty, you be quiet.
Ashley Birch is pretty.
Actually, the Space World had really good color work in it, I noticed. Lots of things that are supposed to... Lots of good contrasting colors, a nice dark color scheme. It felt very whole. Like, you can believe, yeah, this would be the finished version if they would have actually put things in it. I think we should go ahead and get into spoiler talk and discuss the game's themes, the character stuff, because that's where all the meat is. And in order to start us off, I want to mention something really important to understanding this game, the title. The magic circle is actually a game design reference. It's a term used to describe thinking but only of the world of the game. To everything outside the circle is the real world and the players there, and everything inside the circle is the game world, and your goal as a developer is to construct what's inside that circle in a way that it becomes believable to the person outside the circle. And that is the running theme throughout the entire game, while it's also making it stand for a whole lot more. Like, it's symbolic of Ish's big problems. It's symbolic of like the circular go nowhere developments of this game they're trying to make. It's used in the game, inside the game itself, in 2 different ways, and so on and so forth. Basically, circles are really important to this game, and the fact that it's a game development term is the dead giveaway of what the game is trying to do. It wants you to think from a developer's mindset. At the end of the game, Pro outright states that he's helped you along the entire way on the off chance that you would be inspired to do something new, to do something no one's never seen before, to make a new world. Basically, go make a fucking game. And it's lofty, but this was interesting because this is made by veteran devs, basically just outright saying, yes, video games are art, and we need more people making video games for the love of God. So yeah, everything in the game, like all the old devs, is criticizing the way games are now. The person who's too obsessed with narrative, who makes it too much about them. The person who's too obsessed with mechanics and can't find common ground. And the fan bases that are so focused on like particular franchises that their creativity is stagnated. So who wants to follow me up on that giant pile of noise?
I think the 3 biggest words in the story for me, the thing that takes it from being a fun but silly game about game development, is Ishmael is sterile. It's a pretty heavy bit for this game. It's one of the audio logs you wander across is just a voicemail from the hospital saying, Mr. Gilder, I'm really sorry, but yeah, the results are what they are. And it does make you think more about the tone of how Ishmael is this developer who's obsessed with creating this perfect game that he has control over. And it's not because he's just, a really arrogant developer. It's because there are some things in life that you don't have control over. And so I can see how being in charge of a project, you would... If that kind of control's been taken away from you, you would want to have every single ounce of control over what you could control. I said control way too many times there.
The most interesting part of his character is how he interacts with fans or talks about his fans, because he shows a lot of disgust but a lot of genuine love for them. But when you meet, the more you hear from Coda, the more you realize that his fans are terrible people, and they do not care about him at all. They never have, and every time he's sour on them, it's because he's realizing that it's only the game they care about, not what he's trying to say with it or his own personal touch. And then it's ended up proven right at the end when Coda leads a big stupid coup with toy laser guns.
Sabotaging E4 was one of the high points of the game.
Yes, E4.
E4, wait a minute. E4's just a TV channel in Britain. Just shows endless reruns of The Big Bang Theory. Anyway.
You want to chime in, Danny?
That part of the story, that's one of my kind of... I feel like one of the more lazier aspects of writing that annoys me. Just straight up just calling it E4. Or what was the Patreon one? Because they had
Kickbacker.
Kickbacker.
They actually made a Kickbacker website with that campaign on it.
And then what was the Patreon one, like Patronizer or something? I'm just like,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Those are just like half-assed names, kind of annoy me, and that's my biggest complaint about the story. That so much of the humor kind of fell flat for me, because it kind of tries to be humorous with making those jokes, and then just going like really over.
It's very, very, very obvious what it's trying to do, and it kind of hits you over the head, like when Maze gives that story about the first game and the first story. And it's like, okay, we get it. You really, really hate Ish.
And just going over the top, trying to be like so on the nose, with being like, oh yeah, everything like absolutely everything is recorded in case like whatever. And like, oh yeah, my entire brand is signed off. Like, just feel like just going really over the top, like it kind of loses me, because it's like, okay, that's not something like to that extreme isn't really happening. You don't have to go to that kind of extreme to express your own frustrations with the way game development is done. Just be frank about it. Like, you just don't go to an extreme, just show it how it is. And it goes a little too over the top, and that's where it misses me. Because the point that
of course, that would have to be a problem with mechanics, because they simplified the game significantly, so it's not about the technical side of development, but the thinking side of it. How do you approach a problem? So I guess what they were trying to do was make the story bits more broad in that sense, so it's easy for a casual player to understand what they're talking about. Though I think they went overboard, and I am not at all surprised to see Matt Parker and Trey... No, was it Matt Stone and Trey Parker? Yeah, in the credits of this game for voice work. I would not be surprised if they pitched them the terrible fake names. Because it all sounds like something you hear from a bad South Park episode.
I mean, I saw Ken Levine
AKA
in
a
those
South
credits
Park
too.
episode.
Which, that's something we haven't mentioned. Ken Levine is in this game.
Yes, he is the HR rep in some of the audio logs, and it's probably the only thing of his he's ever done that I like that can't also be given credit to other people, where he's just, at one point, just like, okay, I know I can get fired for this, but can you two go drink and fuck already?
But yeah, because, like, I didn't like when they kind of lost grasp of reality a bit, because the parts that hit home the most were just like the big speech he makes, which actually feels like just genuine frustration from developers, especially like big AAA developers who have been in the shit and have had to deal with this. And especially like the time it comes out, 2015, was the preceding years were not the best years for gaming. I think we can agree with that. The preceding, and so there's a lot of developer frustration around that time. So having like that context, Ish's speech, even though he was a douchebag and I hated him, I got it. Like, I got it, because he wasn't the one really speaking there. It was the devs themselves using it to voice their ills against fandom and the shit they have to put up with, and just being like, look, we're humans, we don't have to cater to your every whim. And I loved that.
Yeah, it's a very melodramatic game, but I didn't mind as much because every single voice actor in the game was just bringing their A game completely.
Mm-hmm.
I bought every single word that came out of Ish's mouth, because James Uberneck was just hitting it out of the ballpark with every word and every shout.
And when he had to get like super emotional, like he sold it. He's a good voice actor.
Oh yeah, he is just perfect at what he does. Pretty much every voice actor in this game is really good in their role. They just fit their role type and play it up as hammy as they can, and they just sell it.
And like the very ending, where it's just like, okay, you're the developer now. Here's what you gotta do, and it did feel like pretty heavy-handed, and I rolled my eyes and went like, okay. When like all the different people coming in with their different opinions start showing up on your computer screen, like your fake PC, and it's just like, haha, you have to suffer now. Like I rolled my eyes at that. It was super heavy-handed, and like I think I just said to myself, just like schedule these meetings. But I did like appreciate how it's just trying to voice their frustration at like it kind of sucks sometimes to work on these games. And
yeah, the passive aggressive stuff in the end was really tone deaf, because if it had just ended on pro speech about how he's hoping you'll make a world of your own one day, it would have been perfect. But then they had to go with that last minute joke.
See, what I find interesting is our different takeaways from Pro's speech. Like, you saw it as like really inspiring, like, go make your own world, that's great. The way I saw it was like that Pro was kind of an asshole, and he was just like, look, I used you just because I'm like, my takeaway from it was that Pro is kind of like the insatiable gamer who always just wants something new. Like, I want the new game. You gotta make the new game for me. Like, I want to play it. I need it.
I didn't really read him as a fan, though, because he's never painted as that before then. He's painted from the eyes of the developer. He's constantly encouraging you to think like a developer. How does this world work? How can you break what they've made and see how it functions? His best quote is when he's saying, well, the gods say they hold up the sky, but I say knock it down. Don't you want to see what's behind it? And that's like the most telling thing about who he is. He wants to see something new because he wants to see a new voice in this industry, not because he wants a new type of game.
Well, I think the counterpoint to that is
he wants to see the touch of a developer, not just something.
Is at a different point, he's like, you're probably wondering why I'm making you do this and I'm not doing it myself. He's like, well, I'm lazy. He's like, I don't want to do it. I'm gonna make you do this. Like, I'm gonna turn you into developer. And like, I mean, he literally plays your game at some point and gives it a rating.
Yeah, as a playtester.
Because like, he doesn't want to do it himself. He wants to see these new experiences and everything, but he's like, no, I'm too lazy to do this myself.
To be fair, within the text of the game, he has a good reason for being lazy, because he's been trapped in an unfinished game for like a decade now, trying to change the world from his end as little as he could, but then just sort of gave up because it wasn't working. There's actually some developer notes in the playtester notes in the game, in like really hard to reach spots, where a guy will talk about how the world was somehow fixing bugs itself, and it's referring to what Pro was doing before he gave up and you found him. Yeah, he's like that now because he's been through this shit for like a decade now, and he can't stop this.
Yeah, I see that.
I feel kind of dumb because I really liked all the characters, but I didn't really read into them all that much. I didn't think about what Coda or the Pro were meant to represent. I just thought they were just cool characters.
I actually think Maze is like the most spot on, because
Yeah.
I've met fighting game enthusiasts, and trust me, they are very much like that.
They are all of the damned.
No, they're all focused on what can I do mechanically in the game. They're never focused on anything else. And it gets to the point where they become the most insufferable bores, but you still tune into what they're saying because they're so enthusiastic about it and know what they're talking about. Like, Maze captured that for me, along with a little dickhead FPS player.
The
Speaking
good
of which,
kind of dickhead.
let's celebrate how prescient this game was. It came out in 2015, and it's like, oh, we're gonna have Let's Players and gamers become devs on our game. And it's like, what? No, that's stupid. What do they know about game design? Well, here we are.
Yeah, I understand Coda is an intern, but I don't. Oh, yeah, they do explain why Coda gets so much power. It's because she sucks up to Ish, whose
Yep.
ego is so shattered that any positive reinforcement makes him your puppet.
Yeah, I'm not running to the TV Tropes tearjerker page to add this on, but the one moment in the game that did make me feel a tiny bit guilty is how Coda does obviously suck up to Ishmael a lot, and at the E4 demo, he says something like, hey, you know, Coda, with all this work going on, I think that maybe Starfather's baby in the game could be Star Daughter and not Star Son. And looking at that from the point of view of a man with no children who is unable to have children is reaching out to a young person and saying, I feel like I've made a connection with you. And then...
Oh, yeah, there was an odd... keep going.
No, I was just saying, and then, because that's how you feel, thinking, that's kind of harsh. Oh, Ishmael.
You just reminded me of the Ken Levine recording because he got in trouble with Maze because he tried adopting her. Which is both funny and incredibly sad because he wasn't doing it as a joke. He honestly thought he was doing something nice. Yeah, it's basically a game about a bunch of broken people and like, and one guy's so fucking sick of it all. He's like, okay, you do it.
I said, also, there's a murder sex orgy.
I never found the rest of the audio files for that. Like, they mention Ish lives in the woods and he has like weird parties.
He has a Freddy Fazbear costume.
What?
He won't tell anyone where he got it.
Is that true?
Maybe.
But yeah, Coda thinks it's a wise-eyed shut thing going on, but I never got to hear the rest of it.
She gets there and it's like it's a party and everyone's there, and like Ish made her like this whole armor cosplay set from the game for her, and she and Maze are talking. She's like, wow, I'm so flattered, and Maze is like, stick around, I hear there's gonna be an orgy. And then that's the last audio file for that I got.
Oh yeah, she's just fucking with her.
Was she? I don't
appreciate Maze's.
But is
I
she
got
fucking
weird
with
vibes
her?
from Ish.
Or is she fucking with her? That's the worst line of dialogue I've ever said in my life.
So this has been...
And it was right here on IndieCent.
This has been the IndieCent episode for the match.
Fantastic.
I think we did briefly mention the kickbacker thing. I'm on the kickbacker now, and there is... The name is a bit lazy, but there is some amazing content on here. Maze Evelyn and Ishmael himself write updates for this little parody for how... It's just like, they were aiming for $40 million. And they didn't get it. The best one is definitely like Coda when she's still in sincere intern mode, and she's saying like, as a preemptive thank you to any potential patrons who may have been debating how much to contribute, we'd like to offer a special incentive for the low price of $50,000. Starfather will allow you to name the burning village where the hero was born. This is an unprecedented honor. I am very jealous of you.
Honestly, the funniest thing in the game to me was just kind of an offhand comment that like every kickbacker failed. And they're always like, I know it failed last time, but like we're making it anyway. And I just kind of like hold my head in my hands because that's a real thing. And it's always the shadiest fucking thing. When like a Kickstarter or whatever kind of campaign like fails, but the game comes out anyway. That's always one of the just shadiest things to me, and so I loved that was a part of this game. That their crowdfunding campaign fails, but they're just like, we came out with it anyway. Still give us money.
That's got to be a comment from Maze.
Oh yeah, it's what I think she says it during E4 while you're messing with the demo.
Oh yeah, she does. I think so.
Oh, and there are, I think there are other references, maybe in audio logs. I can't quite remember about like kickbacker campaigns failing. But yeah, that's the.
So I think we can agree this is a very interesting game, but also very flawed.
It's just don't play it.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how much open world Western gameplay you can handle. I would say give it a shot if you see it on sale. It does a lot of interesting things, and there's a lot of really good character writing in it, and like great performances, and of course the aesthetics are just A+, like the heavy violin music. It's not like, oh my god, one of my all-time favorites, but then again, I'm the type of guy who puts a game made in RPG Maker about economic instability on my list, so whatever. But yeah, I enjoyed this a lot, just not as much as I think I could have if it was made by people taking the story aspect of it more seriously. I don't think it accomplishes its big goals, like trying to inspire more game developers, especially since the editor mode is like worse than a lot of easy mod tools that are around these days, or like level editors. But I appreciate what it's trying to do. I appreciate how engaging the narrative is and how fun some of the puzzles are. And I just like what it tried doing, even if it didn't accomplish it all. So it's a pretty good thumbs up for me.
The first third of the game I thought was great. The last third of the game I thought was great. The middle bit of the game, where it's all open-ended, is where it's kind of hit or miss. I can't figure out if I think this is an incredible game with some really bad flaws, or if I just think it's a really good game with some kind of average-ish parts. But I think just for the story alone, and the characters, and the dialogue, and there is so much that we haven't covered along those lines. Not in a kind of, we're crap at our jobs way, but in a kind of, play the game and see it for yourself way.
Don't play the game.
Yeah, I think it's no secret. I enjoyed this.
I loved, well, not quite loved, but I did enjoy and appreciate everything that happened once the gameplay ended. I did like playing the whole like destroy the demo bit. That was fun because it was very like small and compact and just very clear in what you had to do. Plus you got to I made a baby fly around just expelling fire constantly. That was fun. But like,
if you gave it the repulsor power and gave everyone the repulsor power, they would have all just darted themselves all over the place.
Then like that was fun, and because you're like still listening to the story bits, it's just like everything leading up to that was just, it didn't need to drag out that long or even be gameplay. You could have done much simpler puzzles while trying to do the same thing and just cut out so much fat from the game. It needed to be like a straighter walking simulator to me. And the writing fell apart in a lot of bits, didn't quite sell. I really enjoyed the bits that were just the developers just airing their frustrations. And I don't I haven't really picked a side, like whether I think they're quote unquote right, or whether they were being fair, unfair. Like, I haven't quite landed on an opinion on that yet. But I enjoy just the frankness of those bits. And that was the strongest part of the game, and why I think you shouldn't really play the game, because it's not fun and it just drags out too long. I would have quit super early in this game if I hadn't been doing it for a podcast. If I had just been gifted the game or bought it or something and fired it up, I would have quit super early. And not.
Yeah, we had to guide you in our Twitter chats.
And I did not understand any of the instructions.
I really don't want to make this sound like you're playing the game wrong, because you absolutely were not. But there were moments in the Twitter chat when I was thinking, if I was playing the game like this, like reading instructions from a board, I reckon I probably would not have enjoyed it at all. It's not a very instruction-friendly game, because if you just put it down to go here, get this, go there, do that, free this, and then it was fun to wander around and discover things, but I can understand that is not for everyone at all.
Yeah, this is not a game you want to marathon. I did it over a few days and just thought of these new powers and stuff you can find as new toys and seeing what goofy things I can do with them. And if you have that mindset, you'll definitely get a lot more enjoyment. But if you're trying to finish it for the story, which is really more engaging, you will probably be frustrated.
But yeah, that's how I feel. I don't think it's quite worth playing, so to speak, or just I think playing it is a pain, and I prefer to just kind of watch it.
Fair enough.
And just watch.
So that was the Magic Circle, and for our next episode, we will be doing another special where each of us will be picking a game worth $5 or less, and we will look at all three and just share our thoughts. We'll do a Steam grab bag after the next time we get to another special. Sorry for my brain is scattered. I told everyone to go ahead and make a list of possible games they want to cover, and I have my 5 down here, and I'll go in a circle and let everyone pick one from their list. And the list is just in case any of us pick the game someone else wanted to pick.
I picked 2 because you're not picking the ones I picked.
Okay, Elmo, go ahead.
No, actually, I want to go last because I can't. I can't decide which of the 2 I want. So I was just gonna say, here's 2. You guys pick.
Elmo, you just go first since you only picked 2. Come on.
Oh, the doorbell. I'll be right back. I'm just going to answer the doorbell.
Okay, Dark, you go.
Okay, Danny?
Oh. I had it between 2 that I wanted to know.
Oh, God. I'll just go ahead and start us off then.
Did you have 1 down, Dark?
I have 5 picked out, so let me just...
Let's just play all 9 of them. Let's just go for it.
No.
Yep.
Okay. Let me think here, because I want to suggest us a good game, and I have Superstar on this list, and that is not a good game, but it is an amazing game. So I'm tempted. I'm very tempted. But no, I think I'm going to have us play Verdict Guilty instead. A retro-style fighting game that's available on Steam for about $3. It has a Korea theme to it, and it's basically a very simple, almost sort of like a cyberpunkish color scheme to it, and it's basically a game, a fighting game where you're either a cop or a criminal or a weird FBI man with Dalsum powers. and it's a really fun time, and I want to share it with more people, so I'll go with that one.
What is it called?
Verdict Guilty. BERDICTGUILTY.
It's currently 80% off on Steam as well. So it's me it's 39 pence.
I actually my list was all games I know we all own now, so you should have it in your library already.
Oh, now I don't get to save money.
All right, let's go ahead and move to Danny.
No. Okay. I had it between two games. Alright, I'll settle on the one that I do like more. The other one's interesting, but I'll settle on this one. I picked ones, I'm in my list from ones that we all own as well. And the one I have settled on is, okay, VVVVVV.
Way!
VVVVVV.
VVVVVV. 6 V's.
I remember that game.
Good
It
old.
drove me insane.
The guy's name is just, I gotta
There's-
go to the store page.
It's a good story for
Because-
next time, but I made a kid break his TV by playing VVV by accident, and I feel really bad about it.
So
bad.
we've all played VVVVVV. Did either of you beat it?
I played a little of it, but I do need to play more of it.
Okay, cool, because I've beaten this game like a couple years ago. And it's a game from Terry Kavanagh. He's the developer and the publisher, who's made a few games that I find really interesting. The most notable one is Super Hexagon, which is just like one of the cheapest, best games ever, because it's just super fun and addicting and challenging. And this is just a little platformer where instead of jumping, you just shift the gravity up and down, and it's super difficult, and it's got this weird Commodore 64 kind of art style, and super good soundtrack, and I'm incredibly excited to play it again and get super frustrated again because I love this game.
And what about you, Elmo?
I had it down between either a kind of little arcadey run and gun that was very gameplay heavy with no real plot, or a really plot heavy game that had absolutely no gameplay. But I feel like with Verdict Guilty and with VVVVV, then it's kind of heading towards the gameplay, so I'm going to keep the trend going and say Gunman Clive.
Oh yeah, I have that. I actually have a funny story about it. Back when I used to write for a site I will not give the name of because I have nothing but terrible memories. This was the first game I ever got a review copy for, and I got it through the site's owner. Oh, and I should also mention the site's owner is basically a giant man-child who once tried to make me do a coup to take the site from the other admin, and everyone was just like, what? And I too was like, what? And he went through with it anyways, even though I said, no, I don't want to do that. And then nothing happened.
Oh, I remember this game. I watched the trailer for it once and then like ranted on Twitter about how bad it is of a trailer.
Yeah, and the entire trailer's like, man, this game sucks, doesn't it? Look how stupid a derivative it is.
Which
Why did I make this?
I hate that so
Things
much.
like that.
But
the actual game is just basic fun. It's well, I would assume so, because when I had to originally play it for review, my old PC didn't have shaders, so I could play it, but the character model wouldn't appear on screen, so I was playing it with an invisible character.
How?
You can imagine what happened.
I am looking forward to ranting about this game's trailers and why indie developers should never be allowed to market their own games.
Alright, so next time we will be looking at Gunman Clive, VVVVVV, and my pick, Verdict Guilty. And we'll see, we'll share our thoughts on all three. Until then, we will see you for the next IndieCent. And now I need to go into editing and figure out what I'm going to do with the next heavy storms on this channel, because I went with Tom's pick for the show written by the Suzuka guy, and I'm very, very mad I picked his show because it pisses me off so much and I'm only 2 episodes in.
Hey, just before we end, can I just check something?
What?
You both going to Communications Day 2017?
Tell me more.